Hi again. Someone recently asked me if you have to work with wet paper first, in order to do watercolor. And the answer to that is that the wet paper is one way to work, but it's not the only way to work. You apply it just like you would apply any other tool, depending upon what you want. So right now, I'm going to show you a couple little things. Maybe that'll help clarify that. Right now, my paper's dry. If I want a contained area, if I want something to stay where I put it, and I want it to be dark, not necessarily dark, but if I want a contained area, I would probably work on dry paper. For instance, if I want to darken her nostrils, which will eventually have to be darkened, obviously. This paper is dry. I will mix a black or use a black that's already mixed. Let me see what I have here. I'm going to mix up some colors and get a nice dark. I've got a purple, and I'm mixing purple and green right now. I know you can't see my palette, but here's purple and green. It's made a nice kind of a dark gray, black. And that works for me for now, because I can go back over this later. And I'm going to take my brush, which again is shedding. And since this is a contained area, since this is dry, where I put the paint will stay. So I'm going to just go in there and darken that area. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do right this moment with the dry paper. But I could take that same brush, and if I want to use this dark shadow somewhere else, and have it spread, I could do a couple of things. I could, for instance, here, if I wanted, again, dry paper, if I want it to come up here and to spread somewhat, maybe her part is dark or something, and I have dry paper and I want to control where it's going to spread, I'm going to make sure I have my water handy, and I could take a brush of paint and put some down, and then if I really want to control where it's going to go, I'll take my water and work with the edge like that. So I've got the dry paint on a dry surface, but I can spread it by pulling it from the edge, you see? So there's that. I'm going to do both sides because I don't know that I really want that color there forever. I might change that. And the way I taught you before, you saw that the paint isn't going to be soaking into the surface a whole lot right away. So it's pretty flexible right now. I can move it. I can pull it up. I can live with that for right now. Or I can, so there's two things. I had it contained here, left it where I painted it. I put my dark paint down. I moved quickly with my wet brush and spread it around. Still has a hard edge, which I could come in, and if I wanted to, blend that a little more, I could do that. So I don't know what that is. So I could do that, or I could leave the hard edge, or I could take my brush and let's see. Suppose there's an area I want a lot of the paint to spread quickly. Maybe there's a shadow down here. I don't really have a plan for this painting. This is just a demonstration. So I'll wet the area first, and let's just say that this hair's tucking behind her head, and there's a good shadow there. So I'm wetting that area well, and I'll go grab some paint and come in and drop some in there like that. And it's only going to go where I put the water. You see, it's not going to go over into the dry area. But this way it'll stay a lot moister longer than it would have up there, and I can either let it drip by itself, kind of informally, helping it a little bit, perhaps with a little more water, the way I showed you in the early technique part, like that. or I could approach it the way I had up here. And also with this, where you have the water down, this is going to stay wet longer. So if I would want to go back and pick up some more paint or maybe a different color, I could drop that in there. So here's more paint. You know, I'm not sure that I like this, but it doesn't really matter because it's just to show you. And again, this is not realism. This is just techniques. I'm able to keep a nice hard edge by stroking along the edge there if I want to, or I could let it get softer if I wanted to. Or I could go ahead and drop some other color on there. Maybe I'm going to get wild and do something real colorful with her hair later. You know, make this a real creative portrait. And I could drop another color in there and let that spread and see what it does. Or I could let it dry completely, the way I showed you in the early techniques, and glaze over it to change the color as well. So those techniques that I showed you are not, you don't pick, normally don't pick one technique and use it throughout a whole painting. You use it in little micro doses. Like in the eye, I might use many different techniques to create a workable eye, you know, to a realistic eye. But they're like little micro applications. It's not all one or the other. Now some people will, like some people will do a landscape all wet on wet, or you know, work all wet on dry. But I've found that in order to get any type of realistic painting, like even if it's something like this that's not completely realistic, this brush is terrible, that's not completely realistic, to get semi-realistic effects like the you know, the shading of the hair going behind the head or blending into another color or so on, you're going to want to use smaller applications of the technique. So I'm going to just paint a little bit. You can watch what I do. I don't know if I'm going to like any of this, but you can see how I kind of change it up. So here I'm going to bring a little shadow in. And again, I don't really have a plan for this one. I'm going to do a more realistic one, the bird that I had promised that we'd do later, but I just wanted to paint a little bit before I go to bed tonight. I'm going to darken this down here a wee bit. She's got some wild hair, doesn't she? I don't like this, so I'm going to change that color. Bring some more of this darker color in for the moment. Who knows, I might change my mind again tomorrow. Now you see I'm glazing essentially right now, but I will moisten that and drag it down and bring it under her chin a little bit more, because I don't like the way it's all confined to the corner there. See how I'm just pulling the paint. Now my paper is warping, so it's not going where I want it to go. And that's why it's a very good idea to tape your paper down if you're doing anything serious, like all the way around. And again, when I do the more realistic one, I will show you how to do that, but we're not there yet. I'll drag it down a little bit, bring some color. I'm going to bring a little more shadow over here, since we have all of that good shadow going on up there. And here I'm doing wet on wet because I want it to spread a little more. And as I said before, shadow doesn't have to be black or brown. Actually, I've been experimenting with a technique I just learned about making shadows with the whoops. Sorry about that. About making shadows with the complement of the color that you've been painting with. So if I was painting with red, I could mix in some green and make it, you're making a neutral essentially. by doing that. Sorry about that drop, by the way. All right, so I'll show you how to do that. And then I'm going to call it quits for tonight. So just ignore the rest of this. But if I were shading, you know, making a shadow for this reddish area, and we haven't talked at all about color mixing, so I know this is kind of way off base, but I could take my red, find a place where I have a clean palette. I hope you can see that. I'm going to go up and see if you can see that. Yeah. Okay, so I take my red, which looks really red from the monitor, but it's not. And then add a little bit of green to it. And you can see it's coming out darker, but you can't really tell if it's red or green. And that would be an appropriate shadow for that area, depending upon if you agree with that method. And then I could... I'm going to have to reconnect this. There has to be a better way. All right, let me just get this in here, this color in so you can see, and then I'm going to say goodnight. So I would take that color. Can you see my hand? Yes. All right. And over here in this area, yes, you can see that. I could come in underneath that curl, and we've got that kind of neutral red that is right now functioning as a pretty nice color for a shadow, I must say. I like it a whole lot better than this mess over here. All right, so I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to have a better method next time I do this, and sorry about the 2 drops.